Hello and welcome to the Womb Centered Healing Podcast. I'm Sama Morningstar and I have Emma with me today. Emma reached out to me online about her womb steaming practice and wanting to come on the show and talk about it with me. And I'm sure you're not surprised that I welcomed her with open arms. I love talking about womb steaming. It's one of my favorite topics. And I'm really excited to hear what you have to say, Emma. Emma's going to share with us some perspectives on the physiology of womb steaming and how it affects our brain and our emotions and our hormonal balance and our endocrine system. And I can't wait to hear what you have to say about that. I'm particularly interested in how you feel all of that plays a part in our trauma recovery process and how stress and things like that in our lives are affecting that balance and how we can regain that balance through steaming. I know I have thoughts and ideas about that, and I can't wait to get this conversation rolling.
Yeah.
Please go ahead and introduce yourself and let us know how you got into womb steaming and some of your initial thoughts on these topics.
Yeah. So, hi everyone. My name is Emma, and I'm the founder of Mo and Luna. I make yoni steam seats, reusable menstrual pads, and I run yoni steaming workshops. I call it yoni steaming specifically because even though yoni is a Sanskrit word, it encompasses every single part of our yoni, which is our endometrium, it's our womb, it's our egg tubes, it's our ovaries, it's our cervix, it's our canal, it's our clitoris, it's our vulva. So yoni is all of those, whereas the womb is only specific to the uterus. You know, those are the same things. Whereas when you actually do a yoni steam, the steam actually does touch all of your yoni. It gets to every part, not just, again, the womb, the uterus. So yeah, I use it because it encompasses all of that.
And my understanding is that the term yoni in Sanskrit also encompasses the energetic space of the womb and connection to the spirit. Now, I just want to clarify too that I use the word womb not just exclusively for the uterus. I use the word often womb space to include all of those things as well. And I haven't articulated that as clearly as you just did about the term yoni, but I would say that the way I like to use the word womb, it includes all of those things. In the dictionary, it might not, but I'm using the word womb to include all of those things as well. But thank you for clarifying that terminology for us and what yoni means. And I love the term yoni in Sanskrit because it does include that energetic, spiritual, emotional aspect of things.
So it means gateway, doesn't it? Or portal.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, yeah, it definitely is. Like, we can birth so much. It really is a portal. Like, we bring energy from one world into another. Like, that's amazing. So yeah, it's definitely,
Indeed.
I definitely agree with the term sacred or portal or something, gateway.
And then, the whole tradition, all the traditions from India of sacred ceremony and puja and tantric practices and all of that as we dive into connecting with those traditions and honoring those traditions, then that term just develops and blossoms into having much more and more meaning for us. So I encourage anyone listening to do some research on that term. And if you haven't, if you've just sort of heard it, everyone talking about it, but never really dived into that portal for yourself and all the things, like one book that I highly recommend everyone to read is called Yoni Shakti by Dunsmore Tully. Have you read that one?
Yeah, I read that. It's powerful, isn't it?
Powerful. And so she really does it justice with all of the traditions and really spells it out and goes into depth about it all. So Wonderful. Okay, so there we go, our wonderful terms. And I'd love to hear, you had some topics you wanted to discuss um, about our physiology and how steaming
Mm.
play a part.
Yeah, definitely. So first of all, I'll talk about how I got into yoni steaming. So I just want to keep it real and raw. I when I was about 25, 26, I really started gaining more interest for things of empowerment because I was coming to my own a bit more as a woman. And so I was also already into natural health. I never took tablets or anything. I'd always try to find like a natural herb or oil to soothe any ailments or anything, or to even maybe just like lift my mood or celebrate myself, something. So yeah, always into that, and the two paths just came together. So I heard of a book called Sacred Woman, and that's a book that I would highly recommend. So that's Sacred Woman by Queen Afua, and the book is called the Sacred Womb, sorry, or something like that. And it's a cleanse of your yoni spiritually, energetically, emotionally, mentally, and physically. So it takes you on a really deep journey, but it's full of lots of stories from women all around the world, and it's just so relatable. Like everyone I know who's read it has just, we've all been agreeing on everything we've read, but it really talks to you about the importance that herbs play when it comes to yoni steaming, and how it's an obvious sign that we are at one with nature. But you know, when we live such fast lives, when we've got a bad diet, and when we're constantly taking prescription medicine, we are really disconnected from ourselves. You know, that shuts down our body over time. But you can do, I don't know, 6 yoni steams and all of a sudden be at one with yourself again. That's the power of the herbs, and again, our connection to nature, and how we can really use herbs to manage and not control in a negative way, but take hold of our emotions so that we remain in charge regardless of what's going on around us, and we can find a way to navigate, you know, just life's hard situations and the pain of evolving and healing and moving on past trauma using yoni steaming, because it really gives you a chance to connect with yourself. So yeah, I highly recommend that book. The tasks in it are amazing. They really challenge you. They also make you laugh, but it's so good. So when I first read it, I heard about yoni steaming, but I wasn't in a place where I felt empowered enough to, you know, just sit there and look at my yoni in a mirror. I was like, what? I was just like, I can't connect with this thing. Like, I'd never connected with my yoni before, like, unless I went to the toilet or the shower or something. It's pathetic, but that's true. And anytime my yoni was looked at, it was probably by a guy I was dating or the doctor. Like, that's it, really.
You know, it's really so common that that's the only time that women connect with
Mm,
our vaginal, our pelvic floor, our vaginas, our womb at all is in
mm,
the context of, we know, sitting in front of a mirror and looking. It's not a common practice.
mm,
You know, even though in the US at least there were a lot of consciousness raising back in the early days of feminism and all of that, and that was what, you know, that's joked about nowadays as something that those radical feminists would do, but that
mm,
not become a regular practice. And so now it's starting to be within the sort of the feminine embodiment circles and feminine spirituality circles, you know, especially with yoni egg and yoni steaming or womb, you know, jade egg practices and things like
mm,
that. It's become something, but it's still a real shocker and a big eye opener and huge transformative experience for many.
mm.
So I, you know, I just wanted to normalize that for you for a moment,
Yeah.
so that you're not needing to feel like you need to feel less than or whatever because you didn't know about
Mm.
that beforehand.
Yeah.
Many of us, I mean, I don't think I really did that for the first time until last year.
Really?
Yeah. No, maybe 2 years ago as part of my womb awakening,
Mm-hmm.
my first womb awakening. But I'd been doing womb-centered healing
Yeah.
really consciously, but that's what I was doing
Mm.
for maybe 15 years prior to that. But I just didn't have
Mm.
guidance and
Mm.
mentors that really guided me through any of these processes. So
Mm.
it's not uncommon for that practice to be hugely transformative and totally new for women as they start out with these practices. So
Yeah. So yeah, as I was reading the book, I went through some of the tasks, and I finally, just took the plunge and would sit there and look at my vulva in the mirror, and I just started becoming a lot more comfortable with my body. But there were some things where I was just like, no, I'm not doing that. And yoni steaming was one of them. I was like, you want me to do what? Steam my what? That's crazy. I was just like, get out of here. And then I all of a sudden, well, I say all of a sudden, something that's building up actually, I got into a really horrible domestic violence case. Just a guy who just wasn't taking my no for an answer. And, I was really young. I was only 26, and this guy was a lot older, and I thought it was a friendship, whereas to him, he thought it was a romantic relationship, and that he felt very entitled to me and had a major sense of ownership. And I just never felt the same way. And it all came to a head one night when we had an argument, and then he locked me in his flat for 6 hours and attacked me. So just like this really horrible interrogation, the major duress, major stress, and just ended up full-blown attacking me for 6 hours, like tried to set me on fire, um like broke my nose, ripped out some of my hair from my scalp, tried to throw me over his balcony. It was horrible, and there were like blood splatters all over the room. He cut my hair off, took a dumbbell to me, was headbutting me, punching me. And it was really strange because throughout the whole experience, I could hear my intuition so loud, just being like, you're going to get out of this. Like, you're going to use this for something. And that just kept me going, really. And then it got to a point where I was just like, I just have to escape. Like, there's no other choice. I have to escape. And so I just made a dash for it. And he had barricaded me in his room, but I was just pushing through everything, and managed to get to a police station and give a statement, get some help, and then go home. And it was when I was at home living with my dad that I was at a really, really low point. Like, I was in a constant state of panic attacks. I was having flashbacks and nightmares. I was in just a major state of trauma. I was constantly having a panic attack, and I just wasn't able to engage in life anymore. I just had no clue like what to do about anything at all. So I was able to wake up every day and then make myself breakfast, but I was absolutely just so dead beyond that, just so incapable of carrying out even the most basic tasks. And I think, how do you say it? I became agoraphobic. Like, I got agoraphobia and then didn't leave the house for, I don't know, I think it was about maybe two or 3 months. And I had to give my statement to the police. I had to put together a court case, and like loads of people asking me questions and stuff, loads of people blaming me as well. You know, I was living back at home with my dad, and he blamed me as well. So I just had like straight up misogyny right in my face, and you know, wasn't providing any emotional support. And it was when I was living with my dad that I realized I really saw him for who he is, which is a selfish and entitled man with a major sense of ownership who is very abusive and violent. And because that's what I grew up with, I just stopped and was just like, it's no wonder I ended up with someone just like him. I was like, it was right there in my face. Like, he just didn't care. He just didn't care. And I felt so alone. And at one point, I just wasn't getting any sleep at all, maybe 3 hours a night. And I'd lost like even more weight. And so I thought to myself, like, okay, I'm in a state of trauma. I feel incredibly, I feel beyond low. I was like, I need something. And since I'm so low, anything I try will definitely be a pick me up. And so I was open to yoni steaming. And so I found a friend in London, because I was living in London at the time, who made herbal steaming packs. So I bought one from her. I got my pot ready, boiled up the water, but I made sure it was like 2 o'clock in the morning so everyone was asleep. So no one would walk in on me and be like, oh my God, what are you doing? So yeah, I steamed. I just squatted over the pot and it felt amazing. Like, it just felt so amazing. Just this really soft pulsation of heat, just massaging my vulva. And then I could feel like I could really feel it expanding like a rosebud or something. And yeah, it was just amazing. It was so just, oh, I don't have any other words. It just felt so deeply beautiful. And yeah, I was knocked out. Like, I slept so well. I slept so well for the first time in like 3 months. And yep, I had maybe about 7 hours of non-interrupted sleep. I didn't have any nightmares. So when I woke up the next day, I just felt so like, oh, She-Ra, Wonder Woman, Superwoman, Storm. Like, I felt like a Megatron.
Yes.
And
Rescue.
yeah, it honestly rescued me. It honestly rescued me. And the thing is, at the time, because I had an ongoing court case, I really needed to be able to be present to make decisions, like for myself, for my future, like really take my power into my own hands and try the justice system for what I can. Because, you know, I thought this isn't just a fight for me as an individual. I can fight this, do my best to win it, and use it as an example to other women who are in similar situations, to be like, no, you're not alone, like, you can fight this. And to really break that silence and the shame and the stigma around domestic abuse and other things relating to womanhood as well. Even though I got a lot of flack, especially from other women, because what happened with the court case was just that the guy just got let off. He got a slap on the wrist, got let off. And like, when he came out of jail, he was bragging about it on Facebook, telling everyone what he did, and it was like he was proud. And then he was also saying how the guys he was in jail with, he told them the story and they all agreed with him that he was right for doing what he did. So he felt even more empowered in what he did. So I was getting lots of flack, and people would be sending me messages being like, yeah, I believe him, I believe you're a liar and you manipulate people and blah blah blah. And then that just brought all the trauma back, and it just sort of made me realize at one point, because at one point I thought to myself, I need to break the cycle of abuse, specifically with men. So I thought to myself, do you know what, I need to start putting boundaries in place. And that's when I've started to rediscover who I really am. So, you know, I had an honest conversation with myself, and I did that while yoni steaming, because I was just in such a state of relaxation, and my body was just creating, or should I say my hypothalamus and pituitary gland were creating so much oxytocin that I felt really connected to myself. I felt so good. I felt really confident, and I had the ability to process, not only emotionally, but then just be present in making a decision, like a hardcore decision that can affect you know, the rest of my life. And that was very much the court case. And when that didn't go to plan, and again he came out of jail and was bragging, whenever people would be like accusing me of this and this and that, there'll be my intuition right there again, just saying, don't worry, they're all going to apologize to you one day. And I was like, yes, queen, like, yes. And so then I thought, you know, I'm going to get into this a lot more. So then by this time I was working again. I was able to go out. I had like a safety plan. I made sure I wasn't going to areas where I knew he'd be in. So I felt, well, I thought I felt okay, but I felt well enough to, you know, get my life back, really participate in my life. And I started exploring stories of so many other women present, but also in the past, who, you know, made really bold moves, and they dared to be seen as human beings, because that's what it really is. That's what feminism really is. It's the fight for women to be seen as human beings, to be given equal rights and have the same perception as men, just like we're human beings. And that's it, it's very cool. It's not complicated at all, yet society has made it. And I was just like, I know I've discovered it now. Like, I've discovered the call. I've answered the call of the mother beating her drum, calling me to dance this dance of life with her. And I was just like, I've heard it now. Like, I can't unhear it. And it was like a massive part of me, like my soul had been opened up to the fact that I can be a wild woman. I can live outside of the refines and the restraints of society. You know, I don't want to be a good girl. I don't want to be silenced. I want to shout out loud. I want to take up space. I want to live from a deeper and more meaningful place. And I was just like, but I'm living in a modern world that's very fast, that's very money orientated. I'm part of the system as well. How on earth am I going to navigate this? And yoni steaming really helped me to deal with my trauma, to help me navigate through this crazy thing called womanhood, shall I say. And definitely, I would say 110 million%, especially when I started charting, having yoni steams around a new moon. It was just the most powerful thing ever, because not only was I reprogramming my body and my mind, I was really taking in the full juice of the new moon. So I'm using an ethereal power, literally the power of the universe behind me, so that I can, you know, live out my goals, especially living from a deeper place and being a wild woman. So yeah, yoni steaming, that's how I got into it. I was at the lowest point I'd ever been at, and I gave yoni steaming a go, and I'm never looking back. Never looking back.
So powerful. And so you mentioned a little bit about the oxytocin that the yoni steaming, that the womb steaming practice stimulated for you, and that how that helped you to feel more present, more connected with yourself. I would love to hear more about what you've learned that the whatever specific herbs perhaps, or the actual just steaming itself with the steam
Mm.
from below, how that stimulates our hormonal and endocrine system.
Okay, well, the very base of the very base of our spine is where our central nervous system is. And when you do a yoni steam, the heat rises up to your central nervous system, so it activates it immediately. And it sends signals all the way up your spine into your brain, receiving messages from the herbs. So say, for example, lavender. Oh my gosh, I never steam without lavender. It's the best one ever. So lavender, it's an antispasmodic, so that can also be a relaxant. So it's great for anyone who's experiencing stress, anxiety and panic attacks, because it sends a signal up to your brain which says that you're in a state of relaxation. So it sends out oxytocin, and then so that triggers that triggers the pituitary gland to create and then release oxytocin. And not only that, but lavender slows down the rate at which your heart breathes. So the steam, or at least the effect of it, is able to go to your heart even quicker. So then, because that slows down the rate at which your heart beats, your breathing slows down, and you move from breathing in your chest into breathing into your belly. So when you're taking breaths into your belly, you're getting a lot more oxygen into your body, and a lot more of that can go directly to your womb, because your womb is a muscle, so it needs oxygen, just like all your other muscles, to convert the oxygen into energy so that it can function properly. And then by this point, I say about 5 minutes into your steam, your muscles, or your yoni muscles, especially your vulva, is a lot more relaxed. And then your canal, or your vaginal canal, physically widens, so that allows a lot more steam to rise up into your uterus, and then along your fallopian tubes into your ovaries, and then up to, again, your central nervous system. So when you're breathing a lot slower, you're in your parasympathetic state. So your pupils aren't dilated. Your blood is able to send, or at least your brain is happy to send your blood fairly all around your body, rather than when you're in your sympathetic state, your stress, your blood is just sending oxygen and nutrients to the muscles that are needed most. So and your heart, I think your airways are constricted as well, so your lungs aren't functioning properly, and that produces cortisol, which is a stress hormone, and that triggers your fight or fight response. And with that, you need a rush of glucose, or sugar, shall I say. And then your adrenal glands or shall I say your pituitary gland, sends a signal to your adrenal glands to release sugar into your bloodstream, regardless of whether you choose the fight or flight mode. And that can lead to stress, especially if you then are in a state of panic over a prolonged period of time. So then lavender is really great for that, because it completely reverses that process, and then your brain is like, yes, I'm relaxed, I'm relaxed, I'm relaxed. And when you're relaxed, you're able to take in a lot more information around you, not just visually, but then I suppose like energetically and mentally as well. So you're cognizant of a lot of what's going on around you, which helps in terms of the process of critical thinking and having to make decisions and having rational responses to things. And those are really, I can't stress just important how much those are needed if you really want to move forward in life and be the woman that you're being called to be. It's not an easy thing, but yoni steam can really, really help with that, because it rewires your brain. It can literally rewires your brain.
It is very powerful, and I love how you describe the two different states that our nervous system can be in at any given time. And just living in our modern world, and in this world where we might be surrounded by men and even people of all genders,
Mm.
women can be just as indoctrinated, even ourselves,
Yeah.
by the ownership model, or that people with female bodies
Mm.
are owned or
Mm.
dominated by people with male bodies, and
Mm.
that's the norm, and that's right, and that's
Mm.
supported by all of our, most of our mainstream religious texts and mythologies, and it's
Mm.
that way for a lot of thousands of years, and it's been internalized by even women,
Yeah.
to the traumatic stress of its violent inception, the violent assertion of this patriarchal model, and,
Mm.
and over the years, from the beginning and continually, um, as we see in your relationship with the domestic violence. And
Mm.
that is one of the major tools of the patriarchy to sustain that domination model of relationship between
Mm.
masculine and feminine. And that keeps us all in a state of trauma.
Mm.
Doesn't empower the men anymore.
Mm.
And in fact, it's
Yeah.
when you really look at the harm that it does everyone, that
Mm.
model harms men in very different but just as powerful ways as it
Yeah.
and so I think we need to start steaming the men too.
Yeah. Well, speaking of,
Yeah.
I make high yard yoni steam seats now, and they can be used for men to do lingam steaming because there's a bit more of a distance between the herbal steam and bowl and the phallus, so they won't get burnt or anything. So yeah,
Yeah,
anyway, want to do it, holla, because I got you.
yeah, I put my husband, I used when I was using a steam chair, I had
Mm.
one of those like bedside toilet systems for people,
Yeah.
elderly people. Somebody's dad had died, they had one of these left in their garage, so I brought
Mm.
it for steaming, and it was quite a bit higher than your typical steam seat, and I did
Mm.
that for a while, and I had my husband on there a few times, and it really helped him.
Mm.
But now I just steam standing up so I can dance and move
Mm.
my hips. And that's what I recommend to most of my clients, is because the the amount of sitting that we do in
Mm.
cars, on chairs, all of that, um, is part of the culprit of the lack of circulation
Mm.
pelvis. And so steaming standing up or even kneeling where the seat isn't covering up parts of our hips,
Mm.
pelvis, that our whole pelvis, our buttocks, everything is
Mm.
exposed to the steam. That feels more like a more complete and full treatment for me. And
Mm.
I just wanted to revisit a couple of the things you talked about, because there is some controversy about the physiology that you described of the vaginal canal actually opening,
Mm.
actually allowing the steam to pass up through the vaginal canal and into the womb as a gas.
Mm.
Um, and in my understanding of our physiology and my experience of my vaginal canal, it doesn't ever just hang open with air in there.
Mm.
Maybe other women are different, but it doesn't really do that for me. And
Mm.
as well, the cervix, even at its softest, certainly doesn't do that. So there's
Mm.
not really an opening with air there for actual steam to pass up into the womb, and like you were describing it. So I just want to clarify that it doesn't actually pass up as steam itself, because
Mm.
it's not open air passageways into
Yeah.
those areas. What it does is it opens up the cells and the tissues.
Yeah.
They're very absorbent,
Mm.
those cells and tissues. And
Yeah.
the steam opens up the circulation And
Mm.
the herbs get into the bloodstream, and the
Yeah.
steam itself, the moisture enters in through the membranes of the tissues.
Mm.
And the vaginal canal, the vulva, the womb are all very absorbent
Mm.
tissues, very absorbent. And this is one of the reasons why I'm always telling my clients to stay away from mainstream
Mm.
products.
Yeah.
That because
Yeah.
those many companies that make mainstream menstrual products deliberately add chemicals into them that make women bleed more,
Yeah.
to sell more products. And
Yeah.
then even if it's not that, there's often bleach in those products.
Yeah.
There are substances that are very detrimental. And that's like, if you wouldn't hang out with that product in your mouth all day long,
Hang out with, or
then,
have it hang in your vagina.
then don't put it in your vagina, because
Yeah.
near your vagina, right? You would, if you like put it on your lips and hang out with it on your lips all day long, then don't put it anywhere near your vagina.
That's such a good way of thinking about it. I'm going to say it like that from now on.
Right. Because this is our upper mouth, this is our lower mouth. And it's really designed to absorb and take in and receive energy from Mother Earth, receive energy from a love partner, and bring it into that womb space energetically as well as physically, in order to create a baby, but also receive inspiration, spirit from Mother Earth, from Spirit, Divine Mother, and wherever we're receiving from our soul, to receive this energy, absorb it into the core of our being, and then transmit it directly to our brain. So you talked about the nerves at the base of the spine. Actually a nerve that's right at the base of the womb itself that has a direct line, direct nerve line to the brain. This is why romance novels are so popular, because that communication between the brain and the womb is so powerful. So we can read about a sexy romance scene and get totally aroused and even have orgasms just by imagining that situation. And so that goes directly to the womb. And our experience of our womb, anything our womb is experiencing goes directly to the brain, just like you described. And it's so quick. So it's not necessarily, and yes, it goes through the spinal column, but it's right there at the womb. It's not in the spine. It comes out of the spine and directly to, and then directly into the spine and up to the brain, like faster than anything else.
Well, thank you so much for that education, but that's really like a million light bulbs have gone off in my head. Like I'm just like bing, 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 like like it's really just made like that connection so much clearer, like so much clearer. It's just almost like duh, that's just so obvious, like it's that clear.
Right. And then so what you were talking about, oxytocin, is the pleasure hormone. And it neutralizes all the effects of the stress hormones that you described, as well as other pleasure substances that our body produces when we experience pleasure. A particular one is called nitric oxide, which neutralizes stress hormones in our tissues. So when we feel that pleasurable, warm steam, it goes straight to the brain and has us producing oxytocin, which neutralizes all those stress responses that you talked about, helps us relax, especially if we have lavender in there, and the herbs that will do that for us too. And what it also does is it starts all our whole body, our tissues and our bones, to produce nitric oxide. If you want to learn more about nitric oxide, have you read any of Christiane Northrup's books?
No, I don't think I have.
I highly recommend that to you and any listeners. Christiane Northrup's book, The Secret or the Hidden Pleasures of Menopause. Even if you're not approaching menopause at all, the information she shares in this book about the importance of pleasure and
Mhm.
deliberately cultivating pleasure practices in our lives for our overall
Mhm.
health, I feel is essential for every woman,
Okay.
every person, regardless of gender. And she's done a lot of research about nitric oxide. So I highly recommend her books. I'm sure she talks about it in her other books as well. So anything by Christiane Northrup, but particularly that one, Hidden Pleasures of Menopause. So
Okay. Thank you.
loving
Add it
this.
to my book list.
Yes, I'm loving this discussion. And I also want to talk about how you mentioned that the steam naturally gets you breathing deeper,
Mm.
right? And that how beneficial that is for our overall health and for shifting our nervous system from being in fight and flight and stress mode,
Mhm.
being in relaxation mode. And that is that's one of the quickest ways,
Mm.
along with these pleasure responses that we're talking about,
Yeah.
shift out of um, fight and flight mode.
Mm.
So you don't have to wait for the steam to do it for you or rely
Mm.
on the steam for doing it
Yeah.
for you. And what I often teach my students and talk about in all the times that I get on here and talk
Mm.
is that we can deliberately have a deep breathing practice, and it doesn't have to
Exactly.
be when we're on the steam, when we're steaming ourselves, although when we're steaming, if we enhance that deep breathing
Yeah.
practice, then that enhances the effects of the steaming.
Mm.
The more you deep breathe, the more parts of your body can relax out of fight and flight. And my
Yeah.
experience as a yoga instructor and a body worker is that different parts of your body can hold on to that stress and that fight
Mm.
flight mode, especially the arms and the legs. And
Yeah.
especially if we were in a stressful situation and couldn't really fight back as much as we wanted to.
Mm.
Luckily for you, you were able to activate the power of get stuff out of the way, get me out of this situation. And that probably discharged a lot of the stress hormones.
Yeah.
A lot of people, however, are in stressful situations like an accident, and then they're strapped down to the gurney on their way to the hospital, and they never really got to run away. Or
Mm.
even just the day-to-day stresses of driving in traffic or interacting with difficult people and not really
Yeah.
being able to punch them in the nose without going to jail, or interactions with the police, right? Where
Mm.
a finger that might look like you're fighting back, then you're in really big trouble, right?
Mm.
So there's all kinds of ways that stress response is stored in the different parts of our bodies, and
Mm.
especially in our wombs, because of the constant, even low-grade trauma of living in a world where
Mm.
we're treated as property and exploited, right?
Yeah.
That low grade, even if you don't have a big trauma story like you shared, um,
Mm.
that and then even after you've recovered from that constant bombardment of your dad being just like your abuser, or
Mm.
just people in your workplace or whatever that you can't really speak up to without losing your job and all of that,
Mm.
we end up storing that in our womb. And so the
Yeah.
steam and the deep breathing, especially
Mhm.
if we bring that deep breathing and move the body.
Yeah, definitely.
Why the yoga is so powerful, and this therapeutic dancing and
Yeah.
vocalizing. So I like to sing when
Mm.
I call it womb song, and that
Yeah.
vocalizing, toning, chanting with your favorite spiritual chanting, even sing
Yeah.
along with any of the songs that you love to sing, love songs, whatever kind of songs. The sound
Yeah.
of our own voice activates that nitric oxide,
Yeah.
that pleasure hormone. So
Yeah.
I just wanted
I
to
get,
go ahead.
yeah, I was just going to say, I get everything you've just said, I get the women doing all together in my workshops.
There you go.
Yeah, we do the deep breathing. And I say to them, because most of my workshops are public, I never know who's going to turn up. A lot of the time, it's just a group of strangers. And I'm just like, wow, I've got to get everyone really comfortable with themselves and one another in the space of, and steaming within the space of 3 hours. I was like, oh my God. So I would always say to them, like at the very beginning, like how important deep breathing is to help them get into that state of relaxation and then connected to themselves, and then build that trust with one another to be able to talk about, you know, the deeper innermost feelings and that, you know. But yeah, the deep breathing really helps with that. And I say to them all the way throughout it, um, if you ever feel stuck or challenged or it's just too much, bring everything back to deep breathing. And then I get them to do an embodiment practice. We start off with some stretches and then some slow movement, and then I just create a nice scene for them, and, you know, really get them moving their hips and which muscles to focus on, bringing their arms into it and celebrating their hips, and, you know, really reclaiming their body through dance. And then, or maybe I don't even call it dance, just through movement, just to really allow them to drop into their body and let their body express itself and really ground into their hips and just celebrate their hips and their yoni, all of that. So yeah, I love it. What we're doing is just so beautiful, right?
Yeah, and you know, I'm glad you mentioned that you're teaching workshops and you're finding ways
Mm,
to help people, help women to relax into steaming together in a group.
mm.
Because I mean, you're not the first person I've heard this story from of steaming. What? No way. So a lot of women have that first initial reaction, and then coming together and doing that together in a group, that is even another layer of inhibition
Mm.
that you're having to face. And so and this brings me to that next question I was going to ask you. It sounds like you're really making some bold moves, like you were about these ladies that you were reading about who were being really bold and breaking through the limitations of the patriarchal society, and
Mm.
creating a wild life for themselves outside of the normal constraints of society. It sounds like you found your path doing that around steaming here. So are you doing these workshops in London or somewhere else?
No, somewhere else. So I'm based in Bristol, which is about 3 hours from London. And yeah, I have them here in Bristol once every month from March, from the end of March onwards. So that will be the last Sunday of every month. And then I'll have them every month or so on the third Sunday of third Sunday of the month from April onwards in Glastonbury. And the place in Glastonbury is so lovely. It's called the Goddess House.
Oh,
And
I've been there. Lovely.
you've been there. It's lovely, isn't it? Yeah, so I have my yoni steamer workshop there, and then the one in Bristol is really nice as well. It's so cute. It's in a teepee, and yeah, so there's going to be a wood-fired oven, cushions everywhere. Just a really lovely like outdoor space where we can connect to nature, somewhere really peaceful and quiet. Um, and yeah, people just seem to love the festival setting, that type of festival vibe. My most fun workshops have been at festivals, so I just like having that feeling. And it also brings back um I suppose the idea of the red tent as well, just like women gathering together, not just on the new moon, but just simply gathering together whenever. And yeah, really being able to hold space for that. It's a really special and beautiful thing. And, you know, really talking about the moon and how we can use it to navigate our lives, and really digging into our cycles and figuring out, you know, what's our spring, what's our summer, what's our autumn, what's our winter, what am I going to do with this energy? Okay, so my summer is coming up, that's a time for me to act. Okay, so before I act, I need to plan. Let me do that during PMS. And, you know, okay, now I just need to relax for a bit from all that planning. Okay, I'll do that during my winter. Okay, now it's time to start waking out of it and start sending out those emails and getting things in the diary. I'll do that in spring, and then summer comes, right, act.
Ready to go.
You know, it's really beautiful to be able to live your life like that, especially when you do want to make these big power moves and move towards, yeah, being a wise woman, or maybe being a sexually empowered woman. My gosh, I went through that, and that was fun. um, and you know, just really having to figure out how to live unashamedly, especially as a sexually empowered woman, which means, you know, having those open and honest conversations with your partner. For me, it was with men, about sexual health, about pleasure, about, even things like going to the doctors regularly to get tested, walking up to the counter and not feeling ashamed, and not lowering your voice when you want to be like, oh, can I have an STD test? Just saying it out loud, and looking the person dead in their eye, and that's just figuring out ways to break the shame, the silence, having conversations with my friends, or posting online to my Instagram page, just having a conversation, be like, yo, ladies, what kind of contraception are you into? What works for you? And just creating safe space and a platform for things like that. Or even speaking about breaking traditions, or having hard conversations with your mother if she wasn't emotionally available, or if she even maybe did things that actually upheld the patriarchy, or and wanting especially your mothers to be part of your journey, especially as a woman, because that's how a lot of us first learn what a woman is. So when you break away from that tradition, it's like, how, having conversations about how you do that without disrespecting your mother, because she's on her own journey. So just having these conversations, and then being like, okay, what's next? Because those are two very hard things to break through, but it's just like, it gives you the impetus and the strength to carry on driving forward, because again, that oxytocin, you're just so connected to yourself. You're able to release that stagnation of tissue and all that's no longer serving you energetically as well, in preparation for what's next. So you're really calling on that energy and vibration on that side of things as well. And it's just, I dread to think of who I would be if I never discovered yoni steaming. Like, I give thanks every day that I'm not that woman who is silenced, who doesn't have a voice, who hasn't explored what she wants romantic relationship to look like herself, who is unashamed in saying that traditional motherhood just is not for me. And not just getting married because it's just something you do, like, and then I would have ended up with 5 kids by now and resented all of them, and just been like so unhappy and just not present. And I just think, my God, not for me, not in this life. And yoni steaming has really helped me to discover that for myself, connect with it, and then articulate it to other people as well.
Beautiful. So I imagine that Angie Twytle.
No, I don't.
The Goddess House?
Oh, okay. Yes. I think if we're talking about the same person, I think I might have actually given her a one-to-one yoni steam session. If not that, then she might have come to one of my workshops.
So she offers body work at the Goddess House. So yeah. Make sure we're talking about the same person. And she is one of my womb awakening mentors. Mm-hmm. And I actually assisted a workshop several years back in Exmoor with her. Mm-hmm. And I actually received the guidance for creating the womb-centered healing temple online space in at the Chalice Well. And
really?
Yeah. So,
oh my gosh, I love how we're so connected.
I actually spent quite a bit, like several weeks on either end of that workshop that I assisted Angie in Glastonbury, and my own ceremonial reconnections with that ancestry.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful that you're there. And actually the Goddess House itself was one of the models. I said, I want to do that kind of a collaborative arrangement of practitioners, coming together to create a space, but I want to do that online. That was the model for this online space.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I love that connection. I just love it. Who would have known all of this from an email I sent out not even long ago?
And I haven't talked about it. If you've been listening if you haven't listened to all of my podcasts and my summits, you might not have heard that. I think I talked about it more in the summits. Angie, in one of my summits, helped with the opening ceremony and all of this. So anyway, I highly recommend connecting with her. She does womb-centered, healing stuff, and I'm sure she would be happy to know somebody that she can refer her people to for steaming practices, so ceremonies. So wonderful. So is there any place folks can come to find you and what you're offering online? Do you have a website or a social media platform?
Yes.
The best place to find you?
Yeah, so the best place to find me will be on Instagram, and that's at mama_luna. So MAMA_LUNA, Mama Luna, Yoni Steam. So YONI Steam. So at mama_luna Yoni Steam. And the link in my bio will bring up my link tree, and that has the clip to my first ever YouTube video, just as a brief intro to what Yoni steaming is. It will bring up my big cartel page, so people can buy some of my products from there. But there's more information on my Shopify page, so that's also in the link tree link, and that has just a bit more, I think, of what I've spoken about, especially in terms of how I got into Yoni steaming and then some of the benefits. But then it's also got the links to my workshops as well. So they'll find links there. And yeah, that's it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast with me and for reaching out to get connected here and share your story. I'm sure it's going to be inspiring for many women. I also want to remind listeners that if you want to learn more about the Womb-Centered Healing Temple and all the offerings there, you can go to wombcenteredhealing.com. So thanks again for joining us and for listening in. And that's all for now. Until next time.